Hi, I'm Michelle Begue with a look at what's happening in Latin America now. But first, our news trivia. A Guinness World Record holder recently walked a 300-meter tightrope 50 meters above the ground. In which Latin American city did he perform his latest stunt? We'll have the answer later. Chaos in Ecuador. It all started when the infamous drug leader Adolfo Macias, alias Fito, escaped from prison just before being transferred to a maximum security center. Following the announcement of his escape, a wave of violence broke out in prisons throughout the country, and on Monday, several attacks were recorded in cities such as Quito, where vehicles were set on fire. On Tuesday, members of a criminal gang broke into a television station, threatening its workers with firearms, and the images were broadcast live. There were similar attacks at a university and mass assaults on the streets of Guayaquil. President Daniel Noboa declared a decree of internal armed conflict that calls for military operations within the national territory. Meanwhile, according to El Salvador's government, the number of homicides in the country dropped nearly 70% during 2023. They credit the prolonged state of emergency declared by President Nayib Bukele. The number of homicides went down to 154 murders just last year, when the country was experiencing more than 2,000 in 2019. The new homicide rate that the government is showing, of 2.4% per 100,000 inhabitants, makes it the lowest in the Americas apart from Canada. Bukele is running for a second term, and his large popularity is due to this crackdown on gang violence. Now let's go to Argentina with my colleague Joel Richards, who has a special report.
Michelle, January is usually a quiet month in Argentina, people taking summer holidays. But this year is different. It's 1 month since Javier Milei became president. The libertarian had promised to move fast and bring in radical reform to Argentina's economy, and he is doing just that. The mega decree issued in late December has entered into effect, but it faces challenges in the courts, in particular over the proposed labor reform. The new government has also sent to Congress the so-called Omnibus Bill, which has over 600 articles. Milei's administration says the legislation is necessary to tackle the country's economic problems. The bill aims to fully deregulate the economy with sweeping changes, including the privatization of over 40 state companies. But perhaps most controversially, the Omnibus Law declares a public emergency until December 2025, giving the president power to legislate without Congress. People are already feeling the impact of the new government's economic policies, which included a devaluation of over 50%. Economic activity is down, prices across the board are rising, with inflation in the city of Buenos Aires hitting 21% for the month of December alone.
Guatemala's president-elect Bernardo Arevalo says he is moving forward with his Sunday inauguration, despite ongoing investigations of his political party. He presented his cabinet picks this week with an even number of female and male cabinet members, a first in Guatemala's history. The progressive president-elect was a surprise winner of last year's elections, who has promised drastic changes in the country's deep-rooted corruption. Now let's check out what stories we're following for next week. We are following Peru's efforts to dismantle gangs involved in sex trafficking. Peruvian police rescued 40 girls, victims of sexual exploitation, from an operation that was carried out in Lima. The girls were mostly Venezuelan between the ages of 12 and 17. The operation also led to the capture of 12 members of a faction of the Venezuelan gang called Tren de Aragua, which is spread to other parts of South America. And now the answer to our news trivia. The answer is C. French tightrope walker Nathan Pauline opened Santiago, Chile's International Theater Festival by walking a 300-meter walk across the La Alameda main avenue in the capital. The slack line was suspended 50 meters above the ground. Pauline, who has broken more than 10 Guinness World Records, attracted hundreds of spectators. And that's it for this week. We'll see you again soon on Latin America Now.